Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. As we enjoy this absolutely wonderful meal, we have some amazing entertainment for you. The spoken word poetry of DeAndre Hawthorne, aka Black Ice. He is an award-winning American poet, international spoken word life artist, entertainer, lecturer, promoter, producer, host, published author, mentor, and activist. The contributions of this amazing artist to the American and Chicago spoken word poetry is truly monumental. Black Ice made history by establishing the first National Spoken Word Awards in 2017. On April 2nd, 2022, he won his 8th Chicago Music Award, his 7th for Best Poet. He has produced and released over 30 albums and has produced over 10 albums for other artists. Not only has he left an important imprint on the spoken word genre internationally, but he also left his footprint in communities all across the world with his artist activist movement, Poet, P-O-E-T, inspiring thousands of ordinary people to use their gifts to do extraordinary works in their communities. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our honor to introduce Black Ice.
Today my son was asked the question by his teacher to draw a picture of his hero. And after thinking for a moment about who made the most De Niro, he drew a picture of me in the mirror. Came home and he posted it on the refrigerator door, and when I saw it, it touched me to the core. I was outdone. There's nothing more than a father wants to hear than admirations from his son. So that night as I tucked him in, I wanted to be crystal clear, so I sincerely whispered in his ear, "Son, I love you." And yawning with his hands in front of his mouth, he said, "Daddy, I love you too." As he laid in front of me, I was touched. It was like a needle had stuck me in my arm and my blood was right in front of me, so I thought to myself, I wonder, does he really know for me what he has done? And does he know that I never could have been a father until he made me one? And that until he was born, I never really knew me. And that I didn't know a thing about responsibility until he gave it to me. And that until he was born, my future was kind of dim, but now that he's here, my life has been extended, because even when I'm gone, I can live through him. And although me and your moms don't get along, but leaving you and your little brother in the house overnight was dead wrong, yet he was strong enough to take the time out to take care of his little brother. It's just a shame that at 11 years old, he had to play the role as the man of his mom's house with all these distractions. He struggled to keep his eyes on the prize while dealing with the everyday life of living in a low-income high-rise, not to mention dealing with his mother's addiction to drugs. But I swore my life that he would never be a statistic or listed as a thug. So when he would come home with me on the weekend, I would help to build his self-esteem. I allowed him to dream and taught him just what it meant to be a strong black king, and kept him away from all hurt, harm, and danger. And told my son that you could be successful living in a low-income home if Jesus was born in a manger. But there was like this deep-rooted anger that reflected in his attitude, which caused some of his teachers to call me at home from school, but they ain't got a clue as to what he's going through now. And until he found a way to channel his anger, it just kept on slowing him down. But I'm proud to announce that he finally got it under control. Not only did he win first place in a school science project, but for the first time in his life, my little 11-year-old made the honor roll. So when I think about all the obstacles, the peer pressure from the other children, all the slanging and banging that he sees in front of his mother's building, the drug problems dealing with his mother, playing the role as the man of his mom's house and taking care of his little brother. See, when I think about how far he has come, and despite all the obstacles, everything that he has achieved and done, my son may consider me to be his hero. But to me, my hero is my son. That's that P show. Let's make some noise right now for all of our junior citizen awardees in the building. You are our heroes. So when we look at you, we see a bright future for this nation, a bright future for our community, and a bright future for our families. We are in a very important time, and not just world history, but American history. We're at a time where cultures are changing and things are changing, and you will be the ones that usher in a new society. You have the world on your shoulders. Somebody say congratulations again. So, as you go into adulthood, because you will be in adulthood in just a few years, I always want you to think about the keys of life. And when I talk about the keys of life, I break it down and I want to make it real simple. I want you to think about the elements, the 4 elements. Somebody say earth, air, fire, water. When you think about earth, earth is synonymous with the word ground. So when you drop something outside, you say, oh, I dropped that on the ground. Well, ground is also a metaphor that we use for the word grounded, which means to be humble. In order to make it in this world and in order to make it in this life, you must learn how to be humble. That means that you got to listen to what your teachers tell you to do. That means that you got to listen to what your parents tell you to do. And when you go to work and get you a job, you got to listen to what your supervisors and what your bosses tell you to do. You got to be humble. It's like a fist. If your fist is closed, then nothing can get in it and nothing can come out of it. You have so much to offer the world, but you got to open that fist. You got to learn how to be humble. The second one is air. Air is in this very room right now as I speak. The question is, can you see it? And I'm going to pose that question to the audience. Can you see air? You cannot see air. Air is something that you cannot see, but you know exists. Well, you will go through problems in your life. You cannot have life without having problems. But what I want you to know today is as long as you have faith, you will be able to make it through any problems that you go through in your life. You might not be able to see your way out of your situation. Same way you can't see air. But there's a solution to every problem and there's an answer to every question. You just got to have faith that it exists and you got to keep walking in the direction of that answer. Well, the third one is fire. Now, when it comes to earth, air, fire, and water, you can live without fire, but you can't live without earth. That's where you grow your food at. You can't live without air because you would suffocate to death. You can't live without water because your body and your mind is made up of 3/4 of water. So why is fire a part of the 4 basic elements? Well, fire is used to purify things. When you cook over what? Fire. It's to take all the bacteria out. It's to take all the imperfections out. So when you go through fire, how many people remember Shaka Khan through the fire? How many people, now the young people remember Kanye West? He made a song called Through the Wire. But he took it from Shaka Khan through the fire. Well, what they were singing about and what they were talking about was those obstacles that you're gonna have in your life. It's necessary for you to have those obstacles in your life because this is what challenges you to go to the next level. Who's the greatest basketball player that ever played the game of basketball? Who is it?
Michael.
Did you know that Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team? The coach said, Mike, I'm sorry, you ain't good enough. Michael took that fire, he took that challenge. He went home, he worked out, he practiced, and he came back not only to make the high school basketball team, but to go on to North Carolina and then to go on to the Chicago Bulls. And now he's the greatest basketball player that ever lived. Why? Because he had fire. He was tested. There was something that he had to go through. And right now, some of you all are going through something, but I'm here to tell you today, God is allowing you to go through whatever it is you're going through in order for you to get to wherever it is he wants you to be. You got to go through that. You got to be challenged and you got to be tested. And that last one is water. Water is something that's on your very table right now. When you put water in the bottle, it takes on the shape of that bottle. When you put it in the cup, it takes on the shape of the cup. When you put it in the pan or in the pot, it takes on the shape of that. So can you be flexible enough that whatever environment you are put in, to be able to navigate in that environment? It's not going to always be the ideal situation that you're going to be put in. Sometimes you're going to be put in situations to test your character. Are you going to curse that person out? Are you going to put something on your social media pages because you're mad at somebody? This whole life is about controlling your emotions. Somebody's going to challenge you and test you. But you got to be flexible, just like that water. Water appears to be weak, but let it be a tsunami. Or let it be something that crashes on the land, 100-foot waves, 50-foot waves that destroy whole cities and whole towns. Water can be powerful, just like you can be powerful. But you got to learn those other steps. You got to, number one, learn to be humble. Number two, you got to have faith. Number three, you got to be willing to be tested and go through that fire. And number four, you got to be flexible. Can you do that? I'm talking to my young folks right now. Can you do that? Can you pledge to us right now that you can do those things? I can't hear you. Yes, sir. Yes, yes. So I want to tell you about that son that I wrote that poem about. That poem that I wrote was called Hero, right? Hero was written for my son at the time he was 11 years old. Little did I know that 2 years later, that same son would be diagnosed with cancer. Osteosarcoma, cancer of the bone. So when we found out, we went to the Holy Cross Hospital. He was having pains in his legs, so they took an x-ray and found that there was a tumor in the bone on the x-ray. So Dr. Toussaint said, go to the University of Chicago, go get a biopsy, and get it tested out. Stacy, can you give me some water or something, please? And so when we went to get the biopsy, we found out that it was a cancerous tumor. So we went through the chemotherapy, we went through the surgeries, we went through all those things. Well, on September the 3rd, 2008, I lost my 15-year-old son to cancer. Why am I saying that? Why is that so important? Number one, those who are here tonight that are parents, love your children with all of your heart and all of the fiber in your being. Number two, we never know how long we have on this rock called Earth to get done the things that we desire to do in this life. So don't waste your time, because time and life are the two things that you can never get back. That loss inspired me to write a poem called Ego. It's a testimony poem. And it deals with trials, and it deals with going through life, and it deals with loss, but it also deals with turning your pain into purpose. How many of us have gone through something in our childhood phase, and we still carry it with us today? It's time to turn your test into a testimony, and it's time to turn your mess into your message. Somebody say ego. This is an acronym for easing God out. Hey God, where you at? I've been looking for you. Seems like you've been avoiding me or something. And I've been searching for you for years with no answer, just anticipation. And I've been going through this transformation, but every time I call on you, God, it's like I get put on hold. And they say that you hear all and that you see all, but seems like you ain't never available, God, when I call. See, y'all, I remember it was January 91. I had just left Simeon's Martin Luther King ceremony speaking. I wasn't feeling too well that day. Little did I know that all the while, my appendix had been leaking. And where were you, God? Just what I thought, nowhere to be found. And if it wasn't for my son's mother convincing me to go to St. Bernard's Hospital that night, Black Ice wouldn't be here with you right now. And where were you at, God, that morning when I went to work, and when I got to 123rd and Kedzie, right by the cemetery, this lady ran the light. The last thing I saw was headlights. A 3-car collision that almost took my life, but where were you, God? And where were you at, God, when my mother was stricken with cervical cancer? She's been going to the Kingdom Hall serving him since before I was born, and we both called on you, and you still didn't answer. Come on, God, this is my mother. Tell me, is this how you treat all your sons and your daughters? And where were you at, God, that day my son died? I sat there at the university in Chicago and I watched them come back twice. You could have intervened. You could have saved his life, but where were you, God? And where were you at, God, when... Okay, my son, I've heard enough. Now I know that times for you have been rough, but son, where's your faith? Seems like you only seek my face when you need me, for I am a full-time God, my son. Do you really believe in me? Well, if so, then you would know that I am the creator of the universe. All that you see from the highest heights of heaven to what you have discovered beneath the earth. See, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I am the God of Moses, Lot, and David. I am the one who made Solomon wise. I put Noah in the ark before the waters could rise. I gave Samson the strength to destroy the Philistines with no eyes. I am that smooth stone that David slung that smote Goliath in the head. The cracks that crumble the walls of Jericho, the same one that rose Lazarus from the dead. I am the blood of the lamb of the doorpost that kept the children of Israel safe from harm. Even the staff in Moses' right arm, and I gave it the power to split the Red Sea in half. Shall I go on? I said, please forgive me, Father. He said, no, son, I already have. But see, like Jonah, you've been running from your mission. I've been trying to reach you and speak to you for years, but your ego just wouldn't let you listen. When your appendix was spreading poison through your body, I was the voice that spake to your son's mother warning you. And do you remember what you promised me, my son? Yes, Lord, I do. I promise you that if you allow me to make it through, then I would turn my life over to you. But what did you do? You continued to play. So I spoke to you again in the form of a 3-car collision, but I allowed you to walk away that day. And have you ever asked yourself the question why the accident was by a grave site? I was showing you that the road that you were traveling on ended at the cemetery if you didn't change your life. But you still didn't listen. And as for your mother's cervical cancer, I am the reason why your mother's cancer is in remission, and I know your son's gone. But his body was sick, so I relieved him of his pain and I called him home. And yet and still I stayed by your side. All those moments that you felt alone, yet you still rejected my truth. If you only could have put your ego to the side and listened to all those whom I sent to you. Lord, you mean to tell me all the while I was waiting to hear from you? You were sending me messages through all those whom I rejected? Yes, my son, this is true. And instead of focusing on the guides, submit to the truth that you find inside. For Satan is the one who subtracts and divides, but my God is the one who adds and multiplies. I'm telling y'all, he opened my eyes. And so to those of you who can't accept the truth, because our egos won't allow us to accept who the truth is coming through, take this as a lesson. Because see, God just ain't using these leaders today, because asking some of these leaders questions is just like asking blind men for directions. But it's the truth that counts. And in this case, my ego just wasn't my ego, but my ego was easing God out. Thank you guys so much. I love you.